Beyond the Gate, our Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Meg.
And today we are talking about episode 12, One is all is one.
This episode, while visiting Izumi, their childhood teacher, the Elrics, recall the early difficulties of grasping equivalent exchange. They also discover she shares their intimate knowledge of alchemy's greatest taboo.
And this episode covers kind of a bunch of chapters. It skips around a lot too, but chapter 20, The Terror of the Teacher, and then parts of chapter 21, The Brother's Secret, parts of chapter 22, The Masked Man, and a bit of chapter 25, Master and Apprentice.
I don't think we have really anything else, so we will just jump right into it. So the episode opens. We see this guy, blonde guy with I think he has a ponytail, and he's wearing glasses. And we see him. I don't even remember. We just see him.
He just kind of turns around and walks out a door.
Yeah. And then we see that Ed he's dreaming about that man. And they are on a train, and then they arrive in Dublith, which is where their teacher lives. And they come to the teacher's door, and they are very scared. And they're saying, like, I hope she's not home. And
sorry, I was gonna say,
yeah,
I'll just interject this really quick, but somebody opens the door for them. It's different in the manga from the anime, but I felt the need to mention it just because we'll be talking about this character later, who is surprisingly absent from the anime. But his name is Mason, and he is, I'm not sure if you'd call him an apprentice of their teacher, but he works in the butcher shop that they own, and he is an important character. So we'll get more of him later, and we'll explain his significance to the manga. But getting back to the anime. Who opens the door, Meg?
A very scary man. He's got a knife in his hand, and he's a butcher, and his name is Sig Curtis, and it's cute because first he looks super scary, but then he rubs both of their both of their heads in like a kind of, I would say, fatherly way. And in the manga, I think Alice says like, "Oh, nobody has rubbed my head like that." Since
I became a suit of armor.
Yeah. And they ask if their teacher is there, and you kind of see her in the back. She's like in her bed, but Sig is like, "Oh, the Elric shrimps have arrived," and then we meet their teacher. Her name is Izumi Curtis, and she has quite the introduction. She comes out full force, kicks Ed in the face. He goes flying, and she calls him her stupid pupil. And it's in the manga, in the anime, she I don't know, I think she looks like Medusa. She's got red eyes, and her hair is
Izumi's got some pretty impressive dreads going on, but when she gets angry, they animate it like you said, like Medusa, like little snakes sprouting off her head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Al is hiding behind the door, like, "Oh no, I knew this was gonna happen," and she's holds out her hand to Al, and she's like, "Oh, nice to see you, Al," and then she beats him up. She
grabs his hand and flips him over her shoulder.
Yeah, and then she pukes up blood, and it's. Sig is like, "Oh, are you okay?" And everybody's freaking out, but he's like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But it's kind of clear that there's something wrong with her, because first she's in her bed, and then she's puking up blood. so it's clear that she's not all right. But she definitely is the kind of person who, you know, everything's wrong, but
Soldiers
it's like,
through it.
this is fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah. And then after this very violent introduction, we the Elrics and Izumi and Sager are chatting about the Philosopher's Stone, and they're asking her if she knows anything about it, and she doesn't really seem to, but she met someone who does know about it. And she says his name, which is Hohenheim, and Ed immediately kind of freezes and he gets very angry. And we find out that Hohenheim is their father, and he's the man that Ed was dreaming about.
Yes, and the man from the intro, the
Yes,
weird
and the
looking
man
guy
from
with
the
the
intro.
glasses.
Yes.
We didn't know why he was in there, but I remember this moment the first time watching it being kind of an aha moment, like, we are gonna get to meet his dad. Interesting. Because, typical anime protagonist has an absent father and you probably never get to see him.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. But in the manga, Izumi says that Hohenheim was good looking, and that makes Sig jealous. But Izumi says, "You're much better looking than him."
And so Ed is angry. Al is not. He's more like, oh, well, what did he say? Like he wants to hear about his father, but we find out that Ed blames his dad for his mother's death. And then we see a little flashback of the scene with Hohenheim leaving them. And it is obviously it's sad, but also absolutely adorable because we see baby Ed and Al,
Yeah.
and they're like it seems like it's like, I don't know, the middle of the night and when he's leaving, and they've gotten out of bed and Ed is taking Al to the bathroom, and they're just they're so cute, and like you see like Al like gripping Ed's shirt.
Okay, folks, Meg's #1 weakness, anime babies. Send pictures of all the cutest anime children you can, and she will just melt on the spot.
I don't know what it is, but
it's the eyes.
Yeah, but it's not just anime babies, because the little girl from Monsters Inc.
Oh, boo. Oh, and that little boy from Klaus, remember him?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
But anyway, getting off that topic.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So their flashback of their dad leaving. It's the next morning after their dad has left, and Al asks where their father is, and their mom says that he'll be back, but Ed is doubtful. I don't know. He seems like he's an intelligent child, because he knows something is going on. And then we see the boys kind of growing up with only their mother. So it's kind of clear that their dad never came back. And then she like collapses and dies.
Yeah. Well, it is sad, but it's like we said before, classic anime protagonist. Gotta have some absent parents to make them more independent. I don't know what the purpose is. Cause drama, create conflict. But anyway, in the manga, when Ed is, kind of confused about what happened with their dad, and he asked his mom about it, she said there's nothing that can be done about it. So you get the sense she's kind of holding back some information from them.
Yeah. Also, something that random thing that I noticed is like in the scene, like the next morning after their dad has gone, I feel like milk is very prominently displayed.
Of course it is.
So I don't know. In my head, I was like, it does Ed like associate
the
milk
food he had with
with his
that
dad
day.
leaving. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
interesting theory. It could be just like a funny nod to like he went out to get milk. He went out to get milk. It's been 10 years, Dad.
That too. But just something to think about. But then back to the present. They're eating dinner with the Curtises, and they're like asking like, Al, why aren't you eating? And he's, his excuse is that he had a big meal on the train. And, they're just kind of chatting, and it's kind of sweet, just to see them like catch up with the Curtises, and they're telling their teacher about Rush Valley, and that that they got to witness a baby being born, and like how awesome it was, and they're just like I don't know, it's so sweet. And then I don't know, you kind of see something pass between Zumi and Sig while they're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, in the manga, Ed directly asks Izumi why she and Sig don't have any kids yet. And they fully dodge that question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so seems like there's something there. And then we get another flashback. There's lots of flashbacks in this episode. We see how Izumi and the boys came to meet. There's in Risenpool, there's like a big flood, and the water is
it's overflowing, and they're trying to build a sandbag dam sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not going very well. And then Izumi arrives, and she's like, "Oh, I'll take care of this." And she builds a wall with alchemy. And one thing that you notice is that she just claps her hands together and builds the wall. She doesn't need a transmutation circle like Ed. So she builds this huge wall, and everybody's really impressed. And they're like, I don't know if they ask this in the anime, but in the manga, they're like, "Are you a state alchemist?" And she's like, "Nope, just a housewife who's passing by."
A housewife.
Yes.
She takes pride in that role.
Yeah. And then Ed and Al are like completely amazed by her skill, and beg her to become her pupils, and they call her an old lady, and she does not appreciate it.
I'm a little hard of hearing. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. And at first she says no, but then one of the villagers, she's like, "Where are your parents? Like, how are your, like, how can they agree to this?" And one of the villagers like, "They're orphans." And then she like agrees to take them on. I think that softens her heart a little bit.
She couldn't say no to those little faces.
Yeah.
And in case you're wondering how Ed and Al, got permission to go with her when technically they're being watched over by the Rockbell family, in the manga, Pinako reluctantly gives her blessing for the boys to train with Izumi.
Yes, so they start their training, and the first thing that happens is they get taken to an island and left there for a month. And she's like, "If you can survive this, you can survive anything. And you're ready to be trained." And she leaves them with this little, she tells them one is all and all is one, and they need to figure out what that means by the end of the month.
Yes. And in the manga, she makes it clear that they are not allowed to use alchemy to get by.
Yeah, and she says that in the anime too.
Okay, good, because I think that's important to know, like, why can't they just use alchemy to help make a fire, help catch some food, or, just
Mhm.
it would be so much better off if they could use their abilities. I think they would have a major advantage, but she wants them to learn how to do things with their own two hands and without any help from this. Well, it's a science, but it's kind of magic too. So just doing things regularly of their own strength.
Mhm. Yeah. So she leaves them on the island, and then we go back to their home, and Izumi and Sig are just chatting, and Sig is worried about the boys, like, are they really going to be able to survive on their own for a whole month? But Izumi is she's not worried about it, because she trained in the north near Briggs, which is like the winter. It's very
Frozen
cold up there.
tundra.
Yes, yeah. And she also says, like, if they can't survive on an island for a month, then they will never be great alchemists. Yeah, but she has faith in them. She knows they can do it. And then we go back to the island, and little Ed and Al, they've caught a bunny, but neither of them will kill it. And it's kind of funny because first Ed has the knife, and then he's like, "Here, Al, you do it." And Al's like, "No, you always make me do the things you don't want it to do."
That is classic older younger sibling dynamics. I
Yeah.
made my sister do things like do the pooper scooper for the dog when I didn't want to. And I know you
Yeah.
have some stories too.
Yeah, but I don't. If my siblings listen to this, I don't. Let's just say, yeah. I'm the second oldest of seven, so yeah.
Enough
Let's leave
said.
it at that. Let's just say I was one to get my way. Um. Okay. So they won't kill it, and they start fighting, which another classic sibling thing. And then a fox steals their bunny and feeds it to her own children.
Hicks.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I did not remember the name. And then they and now are miserable because they're hungry, and they're like sleeping in this lean-to, and it's raining, and they're cold and miserable, and they're one day, they haven't eaten in a few days, and they're like just laying there, and Ed like opens his eyes, and Al's sleeping, and he is picturing Al as like a hunk of meat, and he tries to he like pounces
Bites
on him
him.
and bites him. And Al's like, "What are you doing?" And then he's like, he gets off him, but then he starts eating ants.
Ugh.
Which is gross. My brother used to do
Ew.
that. No, he would just like try different bugs, and he'd just like eat ants. They're
Ew.
not that often. Like, I only remember doing it like once or twice, but I'm gross. Anyway, so they're Ed then thinks about what their teacher said. Her I think one is all and all is one, and kind of inspires him to they need to survive. And then we get this little montage of them. It's super cute because they like make little capes for themselves, and they're like running through the woods
Like
hunting.
superheroes.
Yeah, and they're fishing, and they're making a fire, and then they do catch a bunny, and I'm very proud of Ed because he kills it, which I think is what he should have done. Al is definitely the gentler soul.
Yeah. You see Al praying for it in the background, which is very
Yeah.
sweet. Go to heaven,
um,
little rabbit.
yeah, and then one night they're discussing what the teacher's words meant, and basically Ed kind of just to summarize what he said, basically like everything is connected. You know, when you die, you become
Dirt.
and then the plants are eaten by herbivores, and then the herbivores are eaten by carnivores, and it's
the circle of life.
Yes, basically. And to summarize, he says, we are tiny part of a much greater flow. And so that's kind of the summary of their time on the island. Their teacher comes back, comes to get them, and the boys give her their answer that I don't remember, but whatever they say, it makes her laugh. And she's like, "You guys did it. I will
Oh,
take you
I know
out."
what it was. It was all is the world and one is me.
Yes.
And she just busts out laughing.
Yeah. So now they're training with her, and it's super funny because she's like reading to them while she's like totally beating them up.
It's a cookbook. She's reading a cookbook. And I sent you a picture of this earlier, but I took a picture of the manga page, and I love it because after they're done training, she's like, training from hell, plan B is scheduled for this afternoon, so I should cook something high in protein. You just see Ed and Al go,
Yeah.
Every coach ever.
Yeah. So while they're fighting with her, she's talking about how they need a transportation circle to do alchemy, but they noted that, hey, you didn't use a transportation circle, like why don't you need one? And she just says, it's something you learn when you see the truth. And then that's where we come back to the present, and Ed's like laying on his bed, and he like opens his eyes and he's like, the teacher has seen the truth. She has seen what he saw, and that's how she's able to do alchemy without a transmutation circle. And so they're talking with their teacher, and Azumi, she makes a spear and attacks Ed, and Ed is forced to make his arm blade. And of course he does it by just without a circle.
Yep. And he doesn't reveal his metal arm either by doing it. He claps, and then he touches his forearm, which is hidden by his coat and his gloves, and the blade just pops out of the sleeve. So he didn't rip the gloves and he didn't rip the jacket. So she has really no way of knowing that he has automail at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so after she sees that, she's like, you saw the truth. I know you did. And he admits to seeing it. And she just, all she says is, I guess we're both beyond help.
Yeah. And she knows that Al is empty and that Ed has automail limbs because she knows them well enough to, like, when sparring, she's like, well, he had a hollow sound when I threw him, so Al is empty. And Ed, your footsteps sound different, and I've sparred with you enough to, know differences with how you're fighting. So, you can't pull the wool over her eyes.
Nope. She's a wise teacher. And then, so Ed, now they've both seen the truth, and so we get Azumi's story. She had a baby who didn't survive outside of the womb. I think it was stillborn, and she tried to bring her baby back to life. And in doing so, of course, it failed, just like Ed and Al's transmutation. And instead of losing her limbs or her whole body, she lost part of her inner organs. They don't specify like what exactly she lost, but
she can't have another child.
Yeah,
if she tried. So it's really graphic though, because you don't see everything, but you see enough to. I mean, I would caution people who have experienced that specific tragedy in their lives when watching this episode. Viewer discretion might be advised.
Yeah, it's very sad. And even if you don't have experience with something like that, I think they do a good job of showing the pain and being sensitive to it too. Yeah, so that's her story and how she learned how to do alchemy without the circle. And then after she shares her story, the boys, the Elrics are talking, and I don't know, they seem to have a very good attitude about, losing their limbs and losing, Al losing his body. He's like, it's our mistake, and we're gonna get our bodies back. And it's very sweet because Azumi then she gives him a big hug and comforts them, and they like start apologizing to her, like, we're sorry, because of course they also feel like they let her down too, because
they did what she didn't want them to do, what she felt she needed to warn them against and all that. It's it's tragic because they made the exact same mistakes as her, and she's probably feeling a lot of responsibility for that. But it's also sad for them because they wanted so bad to, prove through their skills that she was a great teacher for them.
Yeah, and then the episode ends with the boys are back on the beach in the past, and they kind of sum up how alchemy fits in with the one is all and all is one, just by saying alchemy is part of flow, and flow is life itself.
Flow is life, man. Sounds like a surfer lingo.
Yeah, it is kind of like, ooh, like
we're getting into the magic part of it.
Yeah,
but that's okay. And that ends the anime. But I had a lot of manga notes to go through just because, surprisingly, it differs a lot from the show. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that Izumi has a pretty important moment that is glossed over, and in the manga she has a conversation with some of the kids from Dublith. She seems to be very popular with the kiddos in that town, which is adorable. But whenever a toy is broken, they take it to her to fix it, assuming that she'll use her alchemy and everything will be good as new. But she encourages them to find a solution with their own hands, and they have to fix it, by themselves, using their brains and like knowledge they have and parts that they can find on their own. And then there's a little girl who comes to her, thinking that Izumi might be able to heal her kitty who died. It's really sad. But Izumi tells her in a very kind way that death is final, and she has some very encouraging words. She says, anything that is alive will one day die, and its body will return to the earth, which in turn makes the flowers and grass grow. In the same way, our souls become nourishment for the people around us and live on through the moments of those we loved, which was really sweet of her to say. And it's true. And for the little girl who lost her cat, she does help her bury it and make a nice little gravestone. And I think that's an important thing for parents, mentors, teachers to do, is help kids understand life and death and moving through grief. And another thing in the manga I wanted to mention was Izumi's interactions with the Elric boys are very sweet. So Izumi cares for them. Her heart, it's love that she's showing to them, and she desires to keep them from making the same mistakes she did. Part of the reason she took them on as apprentices was so she could stop them from being reckless. And obviously, the boys went through with human transmutation anyway, but she is here for them now to help them with the repercussions of that.
Yeah, and something else, that another reason she mentions that she took them on is that they would be about the same age as the child that she lost.
Yeah.
So I think they just remind her of.
And if you want to see more on that, check out the 2003 Full Metal Alchemist. It's pretty fascinating. It's not canon, but it's interesting what they do.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I want to mention, like I said before, there's a character who is absent. His name is Mason. And a huge plot point of Ed and Al's training is that they have to compete to survive on the island with a strange masked man, who's actually Mason, who was sent there by Izumi to keep an eye on the boys and to give them extra challenges. And again, watch 2003 FMA to see his interactions with the boys, and it's actually kind of sweet. I'm sad he's not in this.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, like I
dude.
do. Yeah, I do understand. Like, I think it's okay that he was left out. But yeah, I like him.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to voice actor notes. So Azumi Curtis is played by Christine Otten, she was Adele from Princess Tutu, Fuyumi Otori from Oran High School Host Club, and Ozen from Made in Abyss. And then Sig Curtis is played by Bob Carter, who is Sem from Psycho Pass, Big Deer from Soul Eater, and Bojack from Dragon Ball. And name meanings. Izumi is of Japanese origin and it means fountain or spring. Sig is of German origin and it means victory that
My beans.
And it means victory that brings peace and protection. And their surname Curtis is of Latin origin and it means courteous or courtly. Animation notes. There's a lot of emphasis placed on the personalities of the characters, especially Izumi. So she has an almost evil aura at times, and I feel like this is us seeing her from Ed and Al's perspective. And also great fight animation once again. That's, I think, what this show is probably known for.
Yeah. It's very, I don't know, it's different from other animes because, like, it's like, in other animes, it's like they're fighting, but then they'll pause for like 10 minutes and like think about their next move, and then like they'll.
Oh my word.
This is like, it's just like continuous.
Yeah, brief aside, I tried to watch the Shoto versus Deku fight from My Hero Academia one time, and I remember being so engaged when I watched it, in the context of the show, but I watched a clip outside of the show, and I was like, this thing is taken forever and a half. This is ridiculous. Don't give me all this internal dialogue.
Yeah. Sometimes.
It's still a great scene though. Still a great scene.
Very cool. I remember that's one of my favorite fights from that show probably.
Yep,
pretty
same.
Epic. Oh, so I was in this episode was going to give like a little like history or like background of alchemy, but there's too much to cover in like one episode. And also I'm just like, I have been very busy recently with like researching for like my own job. And so I just don't have the energy to do that right now. So I'm going to break it up into episodes, give a little bit of background of alchemy in like specific episodes. But for this episode, I thought we would talk about the symbol that Ed and Al have on their armor, and then on Ed's jacket, and then also you see it on Izumi. It looks like it's like a tattoo, like on her chest. And
I was afraid she was part of a group when I first saw her, because the Lust has one on her chest.
Yeah. But different symbol. And I think in a different episode, like we talked about like the symbol and how it might have something to do with like has like some medical connotations to it. And that is like one of the theories that I read online, but one of our listeners, Cody left us a little comment on Instagram and said that the symbol is actually called a lamel, or I'm assuming that's how you say it. And that is the name of an real life alchemist named Nicholas Flamel, who was a French scribe and manuscript seller. And after his death, he kind of developed a reputation for being an alchemist, and it was thought that he discovered the Philosopher's Stone and was able to achieve immortality in his lifetime.
Well, isn't that proved wrong by the fact he died?
Yeah. And also I was like doing a little bit more reading, and I mean, it seems like he developed like this reputation for being an alchemist like after he died. And like there are some like writings about alchemy that have been attributed to him, but that's kind of been questioned a little bit, so not sure exactly what his role is, but the symbol is like named after him. I don't know, there's a few theories on what it could be that I was reading about online. One is that it's a medical symbol, and I think I already mentioned like the Greek god Hermes was associated with alchemy, and he's like wears a helmet with wings, and he has a rod with the two serpents called the caduceus. Yep. I don't know. Okay. Yep. And it's like associated with medicine and can be linked to healing. It could also have some biblical symbolism. The serpent represents sin, and then the cross, like the snake is kind of, around the cross, and it could be, like crucified by a divine power. And then, also in Genesis, Eve is fooled by the serpent, and it could be something similar to where Ed was tricked by the powers of alchemy, and like thinking like alchemy could do more than it could. Yeah. It could solve all his problems, just like when Eve ate the apple, she would know everything.
That reminds me one more biblical connection. There's a part where again in Genesis, Moses was leading the people of Israel, and they were in the wilderness, and if a snake bit somebody, they were gonna die from the venom. And he was able to set up this contraption, and God said anyone who looked upon it would be healed. It was a rod, a staff with a snake twined around it, and that's where we get our medical symbol from, like you see on vet clinics, and that's a caduceus, and that's what that is.
Yeah, that's also something that I saw too.
Awesome.
So it's really interesting. Like I don't think it's exactly like it's never explained like what exactly it means, but yeah, it's something to think about. And it's also interesting that Ed and Al and Izumi are the only alchemists that you see that symbol on, and then they actually start, at least for Ed and Al, they start wearing that symbol after they committed human transmutation.
And Izumi was wearing a high collared T-shirt when we see her before her transmutation, so we can't tell if she had the tattoo or not. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice, bringing that up. That's a good point.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, it's interesting.
Okay, moving on from that scientific alchemical analysis.
Not really science, but
yeah. To philosophical analysis, this episode was all about life. And it brought up the question of if you only had one day of life to live and you could choose which age you were and what you would do, and you could choose like everything about you and that day, what would you do on that day and what age would you pick? I honestly don't have an answer because I'm not that old, so I don't know what age is the best. And if there is a best.
Also I would think that the best age depends on the person.
Yeah. But at least you can answer what would you do?
Yeah, what would you do?
Probably go to a water park.
You'd go to a water park?
Yeah.
That'd be fun. I know, I was thinking like maybe I would try to do something exciting. I was gonna say I'd go to Disney World, but that might be okay. I would go to Disney World with my whole family, but the parks would have to be like super empty because I wouldn't want to like stand in line all day. But yeah, that's what I would do. Just have fun and hang out with my family and my friends.
Same.
And I would be an age where I'd be tall enough to go on all the rides. And like not too old where like when you go on the roller coasters, like you wouldn't be like get hurt. So whatever age that would be.
Okay. Yeah. Here's me being a musical theater nerd again, but there's a song from the musical Superhero and it's called If I Only Had One Day, and they just sing about what they would do and it's really sweet. But anyway.
Interesting thought.
Yeah. But moving on from that, because we can get into deep territory with that one.
I know. I feel like there's many answers.
Yeah. To the story elements analysis. So Izumi is introduced to the story, and she can be classified as a mentor character. This character is an important part of the hero's journey. They teach the hero new things, train them up, or serve as a driving force for why the hero decides to go on their adventure.
I love Izumi. She's one of my faves, and Sig too. He's like
unsung hero. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is. All right. Well, finished the episode. Yay! And we have some exciting news. Next week's episode, we will have a guest. My brother Max will be on, and we're just gonna discuss the episode, and it's gonna be a fun time. So
I like the next episode coming up. Get excited. Wrong anime. Okay.
Anyway,
I'm cutting that.
No, don't cut it. Keep it in. Keeping us talking about Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone deserves some love.
Yes.
Okay. So, Megan, what was your favorite line of the episode?
Something that Izumi said. Always take pride in the lives that were given you. And what about you, Meg?
Mine was also from Izumi. When she's comforting the boys at the end of the episode, she says it's okay to hurt. And that, I don't know, just sometimes you need to hear that. And like it's true. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to be sad.
It's okay to cry. Ed.
Yeah. Okay, low-key, I am Ed. Like, I have not cried in over a year. So.
What about that Dr. Stone episode?
That doesn't, no, I didn't cry, but I was close. And like, to me, like, when I say, like, I haven't cried, it's more like,
bawling.
Cried for, like legitimately, like, sat down and, like, had a good cry, you know? Like your eyes will, like, water. And
yeah, all the time.
But that's not, like, a real cry.
Yeah, I think for me, periodically, it'll happen. There's no schedule, there's no rhyme or reason, but there'll just be most likely a night. Let's be honest, night is rough. But I'll just like sit up in bed and go start crying.
I get that. Anyway.
All right. Next segment.
So, what did we learn in this episode?
It's the circle of life. But in all seriousness, value all the life around you. Everything has a purpose, and you are part of a flow. You matter, even if you are a small gear in the big grand machine that is this world.
Who pushed the story forward in this episode?
Izumi did. We learned some important background info about all the characters and about alchemy through her, and she also trained Ed and Al so they could be the great alchemists that they are today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's a wrap.
We did it. Okay, every time I say that, I always want to be like, "We did it! We did it! Hooray!" Okay. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode. We will be back with another episode next week with a guest, so make sure to listen. And follow us on Instagram. And if you have any questions or comments, send us an email or DM us, and we will read it on the podcast. And that's it. All right. Bye.
Bye.